Well, it looks like we have to have a candid discussion about Monica because people just aren't going to leave that alone. But before we do, she has got victim advocacy, and Dallas County has given her victim advocacy. We're at that point, right?
Correct. Which would allot her a lot of different resources.
Okay. Cool. And hopefully moving house is going to be part of that because she's never going to have a normal life again. After all these YouTubers are done with her, there's no getting back to normal after this.
I completely agree. I certainly hope that she does choose to do that. I think that a do-over would be a great thing for that family.
Absolutely. I'm glad that someone's looking out for them now. It just not just you, because it's a lot of stress on you trying to do this on your own. Like I understand that it's a different type of support because there's obviously stuff she probably couldn't say to the victim advocates that she can say to you, so she can get it all off her chest. So but it's a lot of pressure on you and your family as well, particularly with this upcoming surgery and whatever. So so I was looking at some of the gossip that's going around, and like her relationships with other men, that's irrelevant. What's going on with her personally, her addiction, her private life, it's all irrelevant. None of it goes towards providing Brown with a motive. I don't understand why people think that this is somehow relevant, and it's not. Like if they were in a cult or a gang or something, like the Valet Daybell case, and then obviously, there's what did they have to gain at the other end? In the Valet Daybell case, we know there was financial gain. That it was all money that they were after, and I guess if you want to put them into some sort of drug, they all just want money sort of gang. Where does that play into the boys? Where does money come into it with the boys? Even someone raised their taxes. What does that do anything? Like, she actually does have the kids there, so she's entitled to put the kids on her taxes. Correct. But it's not even enough to buy a joint, is it?
No, and the thing was about that situation was that when that transpired, there was some talk about potentially doing that, and I guess Miss Seagroves, the mother, she thought that was such an atrocious idea that she would call CPS. Now, mind you, if the situation, I think that the situation called for what Miss Seagroves did, and I'll tell you why. Because she was the mother and she knew effectively what was going on in Monica's home with Trevor, and that it wasn't a police matter. It was what she weaponized the system. Right. Now, if she was worried about where her boys were at, then she would have called a different municipality.
Right. Well, she sounds like a piece of work herself. Like, what? Well, if she's perfectly good mum and everything, what the fuck was he doing with the boys in the first place? Obviously she thought he was a perfectly good dad. I don't know. I don't want to victimize them either, but that's a whole other story. But it does give me the impression that what does Monica have to gain from offing the boys? If she couldn't cope, a simple phone call to CPS would have sorted that out, and Miss Seagraves would have had her kids back. Like that would have been sorted. Like even dragging anybody else into it that Monica has associations with, again, a simple phone call to CPS and the boys were gone. So I don't really understand why it's just gossip. People just like to gossip. They want to know everybody's bloody business, what they had for breakfast. It's got nothing to do with the case.
Yeah. And we this community of true crimers, unfortunately, there's a large portion of the viewers that they don't have the sort of tools that it takes to be a part of this and be an effective instrument. Right. And so what you have is you have a thumbnail to a video or video content that talks about a gray towel with a red brownish substance in Monica's washer and dryer, and then it starts out all these crazy things.
And now all of a sudden it's got blood. It's this reddish brown. It has to be blood.
Right.
And we've already come up with a dozen different things it could have been.
Sure. It could be dog poop. If there's, I know that there's dogs there. There's puppies there. Right. Could it be that one of the dogs, got into a fight? Absolutely. Again, I'm not saying that it's blood. All I can say what was on the evidence satchel, and that was a reddish brown substance. Now,
well, we don't even know what it was.
Some kind of way,
because that word was covered up. It's reddish brown sticky tape. The sticky tape's covering up the word. And then even inside the washing machine, we don't know that it was machine. We can see the MA and we can assume that it says machine. That doesn't mean it actually does say machine, but that fits, so why not? So, but on the same token,
sure.
For these other channels to be saying that it was blood, well, we're looking at a crime scene investigation with CSI. We're talking about, luminol. They've got luminol on site with them. So they know if it's blood or not.
And not only that, but so what the public ought to be doing is looking at this through the law enforcement scope, which is very possible because you and I do it, and a lot of other people objectively do it.
Right.
So when you look at this through the scope of law enforcement, because we know that the man took the child from inside the house and he came back. We know that he made movements inside the house. So why is it not so strange to think that this boy put it in there himself if it has biological evidence?
Correct.
Why does it?
He was in and out of the house twice.
It establishes a point.
So he could have.
Right. It establishes a timeline.
Right.
It's an accessory that you plug into the timeline.
Right.
And so you're looking at it like, how does this hold evidentiary value in regards to Darian Brown? Not how does this thing that's in this house automatically make these other people, in the indictment. That's not what that is, and that's clearly not the way that the police interpreted it either.
Correct. Absolutely.
They interpreted it. Yeah, they interpreted it in the way it should have been. They interpreted it through the scope of evidence related to Darian Brown.
Right. And you know what? If he goes free because of the stupid shit that they're talking about, like they're all providing him with reasonable doubt in the court case. If he goes free for this murder because of stupid shit that they're all talking about, how dumb are they going to feel at the other end? They're not going to sit there and go, sorry to Cash's family, or, sorry to the community in Dallas who's got to, live now with Brown poking around in their freaking backyards and stealing their cars and shit.
Again. No, well, raping their children, and
right.
I shouldn't say raping, but certainly abducting their children and poking on them with sharp instruments and, leaving a crime scene. If you think of it in terms of where he lives at, and where some evidence was found in Monica's house, you're looking at a half-mile crime scene linearly.
Right.
There's going to potentially correct. You've got a huge logistical nightmare as far as the crime scene and trying to figure out which way Brown went, because it's Brown didn't just go where he went with Cash. He went with where he went before that, and he went where he went after that. So,
right.
Forensically, this is a nightmare trying to find out where he dropped what at. You know?
And he could easily have dumped a towel in her washing machine. He was in the house. He was walking around. I think there was one point there when he came back, and then he walked off. I think he said something about food. So I imagine he's even eaten some of their freaking food.
Correct. Now, let me, one thing that I hadn't really said publicly, and you could deduce this, is that the gentleman didn't go home to change his clothes. I don't think that there was enough play in the timeline yet that I know of for him to have went home and made that change. I think he was at home, came to Monica's, did his business all around, and then went home and left evidence at home post crime.
Right.
But what I could probably, could safely deduce is that he took clothes from inside the home that maybe belonged to Cameron,
right,
or another male that lived in that house.
Right.
He's been charged with theft.
Right.
So, did he steal clothes and put them on? We don't know that.
Right.
He could have very well stole clothes and put them on. I don't really see the stretch of charging him with theft in regards to taking the child. It doesn't, theft is more of an inanimate object that you take. You don't personify it, So the theft had nothing to do with cash.
Right.
The theft had to do with things that he actually removed from the house, which I believe to have been clothes. I believe that there's going to be some people, there's enough of an echo in the Dallas area potentially that said, oh, and I'm not putting it out, I don't know that this is true, but this is a theory. Yeah. They could say, oh, that's got to be Cameron. Look at the clothes. If Brown was in there and he changed and took new clothes from Cameron, not saying that Cameron gave them to him, but say he got them out of the laundry room, or, maybe they had clothes folded on the couch or laying on the floor, or whatever. He took some clothes, and that's what I deduced the theft is.
Right.
It's so a very vague theft charge. We had.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you absolutely.
No,
it's still theorizing as the other channels are doing, but it's not theorizing that Cameron had anything to do with it. It's theorizing that Brown had the sense of mind to be able to the wherewithal to pull all this off. He clearly did. He's had the wherewithal to steal cars, and when we saw him in that second lot of footage that the neighbour gave out to the media, he's poked his head, in behind the fence, and a dog's barked, and he's got spooked and run off. So, I mean, he's got
correct.
He knows right from wrong. That's absolute evidence there.
A savage would have butchered a child and then just walked in and grabbed the other child and not gave any never mind to what they were wearing. Right. This guy had the wherewithal to change clothes, which is, I expect to see a tampering with evidence come up, because unless they found the clothes, I mean, even if he was to take off the clothes from the murder and hide them and they find them,
right?
That I expect to get a tampering charge there. So,
right.
Lots of biological.
I'm not sure that he did change clothes. I need to look at the footage closer, because the nanny cam
clothes on.
The nanny cam is it reverses the colors, so it's like looking at a negative, if that makes sense. The nanny cam's doing night vision mode, so it reverses the color. So where you see in the daytime, you see the black curtains sort of pulled down and laying around. When you look at the nanny cam, they're white. So I'm not entirely sure he did change clothes, but I'll have to have a closer look.
That's the synonymous theme with the family. Not only that, but Monica has not told me that there was a bloody trail that Darian left behind him coming back in. There was virtually when they.
But if he didn't change clothes, then you would imagine that he would have been leaving blood and shit everywhere. If he didn't change clothes.
Everywhere. Correct.
Right.
So I think that it is safe to deduce that he changed clothes. Not only that, but the second video portrays him with some sort of low line, beanie cap on or something.
Yeah.
The first one, he had the backpack and he had the, he was, to me, after looking at it hard several times, and the fact that there was nothing on the ground or the floor that led Monica and them to believe, oh my God, there's been, a murder scene in here.
Yeah.
All they had was a clean scene, minus the child.
Right. And then the media went in and filmed it. She said she hadn't touched anything. So, and I know she didn't touch anything because, as other people pointed out, there's a little ball on the floor which is in the CCTV footage, and the ball's there when the media goes and films it. So, there wasn't. If people are claiming there was some sort of cleanup, well, what was she doing? Noting where all the toys and objects were so that she could put them all back afterwards.
Absolutely. I mean,
That's
you
silly.
have to imagine that we're this far out in the case. We're this far out in the case now, Aussie, and what you see is a consistent focus from law enforcement on building this case bigger and bigger
Against him.
On Mr. Brown.
Right.
We've not yet. Monica has had little or no contact with the law enforcement other than reporting the threats that have come in and the vandalism and the people attacking her.
Yeah.
Other than that, she's had very little to no contact with law enforcement regarding this case.
Right.
So,
well,
and we know as far as
go on.
Well, as far as the police are concerned, no news is good news.
Right. Absolutely. Well, all I see the YouTube community doing is trying to unravel the police case. Like, you want a killer to be put in jail, you don't try to unravel their case. That's just daft, like, what the fuck are they thinking?
That's what they're trying to do.
Right.
And, these people, they know the power, these channels know the power they possess, Aussie. But then when you pin them down about what they're actually doing, they act as if, I don't have that much power. We're just opinionated. No, you are they don't understand when it applies to them and it puts them, in a cheek rosy red situation. All of a sudden they become dumb and they say, "Oh, my channel doesn't have that much power." Like, if you're putting out there a bad negative narrative and you got one viewer, you have propagandized one viewer. Mm-hmm. That's a dangerous person. I mean, look at Darian Brown. He did this, effectively by himself, right? Most criminals are by themselves. So all you need to do is negatively entice or incite one person offline to come and do anything crazy to this family, and, job well done.
Yeah, exactly. It's freaking insane. Totally insane.
It is.
But there's so many insane theories, like just looking at, blood on a mat. Like, I found that footage from the news media, and all they did was pull a mat out and open it up. There was no blood on it. There was no mention of any blood on it. It wasn't.
No, and people are like, "How do you know?" Well, you want me to tell you how I know? If you go back and look at any of the lives on my channel when I was around there, that rug is still folded up on the front porch of that house.
Right.
It's still there. They didn't take it. It was a very cinematic scene while they were unrolling it. It really built up. People automatically start thinking, "Oh, did they carry him in the rug? Make it look like they were moving in the whatever they could say." Like, it was just a cinematic thing. It was the only activity they could film on the outside of the house. Everything else happened on the interior.
People asking you, how do you know it wasn't blood on the rug? Well, the same question is to them. How do you know it was? Like, don't be so fucking simple-minded. You don't know it was. There was nothing said in that news article. There was absolutely nothing said there that indicated it could be blood. With the baggy evidence and the grey towel, there was something written there that gave them some fucking suspicion. But, the rug was, there was nothing associated with the rug. So where, how do they know that there is blood on the rug? They don't.
It's puppy poop. It was a rug that was older, and they used it to potty train the puppies. So it's got poop and stuff all over it. But, if it was of any evidentiary value, they would have taken the whole thing away.
Hey,
at the very least, cut away the biological material. Go ahead.
Sorry, did you know that the puppy poop would actually react to the luminol, because it reacts to biological fluids,
proteins.
Yep. So the puppy poop probably would have set the luminol off for sure. But of course, nobody filmed them doing luminol. So
No, I mean when puppies and babies poop, it's that really black tarry
Yeah.
substance, that will have some blood and different things in it, and so yeah, you're exactly right. It'll have the protein
Yeah.
that will pop off the luminol.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So,
Not only that, but they've got a number of puppies there, and puppies have sharp teeth, and they're little pit bull puppies. So I've had a litter of pit bull puppies myself, and I had to put them in a hallway, in a like a mud room, and I had to put a baby gate at one end of the hallway and a baby gate at the other end. And one morning I woke up, and one of the puppies had bit the other puppy's ear just in the right way that when I turned the light on, the puppy had run his ear all the way around several times while he was bloody, and there was just a ring of blood around there. And I'm like, oh my God. And the puppy's just sitting there, and his ear's already scabbed up, but he's just...
Like, but there's blood everywhere. Oh my God.
Everywhere, like a murder scene. Right? So I say that to say that, they've got a house full of puppies that are in and out and biting on each other, and there's going to be lots of different things in regards to that. Yeah. But the rug, put it to rest. The rug is sitting out there right now, getting rained on and all that other stuff. I stood on top of that rug, knocking on her door. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
Well, that's fair enough. And the other thing is that, as we were talking about yesterday, the lights in the window, we come up with at least, 5 different scenarios that could cause those little lights in the window. Everyone's like, third person scenario, stuck on that. Like, you can't budge their imagination. Well, but we come up with,
Yeah, we come up with a lot. You're correct. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
You got a little lag here that's a little longer than normal.
Okay, let me just check why. Everything, hang on.
No, it's all right.
Oh, I just got to disconnect some shit from my Wi-Fi so that it's not doing that. Okay. That's off. Yeah. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, it's a little bit there to edit out. Where was I? So the last point was the lights in the window. So the 5 things we come up with was the bugs flying around. Okay, that was the first one I thought of, and I see a bug in the video when he first walks in the room to get cash. When he first enters the room, he sort of looks towards the camera, and a bug flies from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, and that, to me, it does look like a bug. Like, it's not floating around like in the air. It's actually moving from left to right very quickly, and so it looks like a bug. And if you've ever filmed using night vision on your phone or whatever, I've caught spiders. Like, I can see spiders' eyes with mine. So yeah. And I've also seen I
think that's very plausible.
In my bathroom one night, I had my phone on. I was using night vision because I didn't want to turn the lights. I was just going to the toilet in the middle of the night. So I picked up my phone and used that, and I got a centipede. Man, this thing was so big. I just freaked the hell out. Like, and it chased me all over the place. But yeah, so I should have filmed it now that I'm thinking about it. But so yeah, different bugs do actually, their eyes do glow, like Darren's eyes were glowing in that CCTV footage. So
correct.
That was one that I came up with.
Correct.
What was one that you came up with?
One that I came up with was potentially, like you had mentioned before. Now, their house isn't on a direct path. As you come down their alley, you make a sweeping left-hand bend, and then her house is about 2 or 3 houses out past the bend. So, we see kind of one light, and I think that it could have potentially been, what you would have seen, one headlight of a vehicle. And I think that there could have been different height vehicles, so that's how you're seeing the height change in the light there. I know you're stuck on, I'm not stuck, but you think that it's a bug. I think that it could potentially be a bug, the first one. But the ones that they keep circling here and there, I believe they're just lights from outside of some source. I don't know.
Right. So not necessarily another peeping Tom watching the shit go down. Because if you think about it, if there was someone outside that window filming what was going on, they actually had to film through a sheet. Because there's a sheet covering that window.
Correct.
So what would they have gotten on
and they
film?
would have seen nothing.
They would have got a sheet, right?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now, that doesn't mean, that they still didn't try if there was someone. Now, what that person outside, now, of course, I've told everyone, and we've shown where the family thinks that, and we support the family, and, they said that there was a second assailant of some degree that was filming. And, when you say that, and then, the web sleuth eyeballs, they think they see lights out there. Well, it's got to be from, a Samsung 8, Series 3 phone. We can, we just know it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can't be anything but a Samsung. Like, it's got the profile of a Samsung torch on it, right?
Holy
like,
shit, I got a Samsung. It might have been me, Benny.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, did you just get a Samsung 8?
I did, mate. I'm screwed.
It could have been you. Why would you have come to Dallas and not talk to me? Come and see me.
Oh, dude, I had to catch a plane back to Australia, like, pronto. I got animals
I live
to
right
feed.
by the airport.
Someone had to feed the animals. Someone had to stop my dog from eating the neighbour's chooks.
I like chicken too.
But anyway, yeah, so you're following my drift there anyway. Absolutely. So,
yeah, I think that until, I'm not saying, I shouldn't say until, but I would say until proven otherwise, if the family says, or they say they were told that there was a second person involved, I gotta believe them. You know what I mean? They've never, as far as I know, they've never lied to me. I don't have a reason to think that they've lied to me. So until they've been told that there wasn't a second assailant, I got to go with what law enforcement told them.
I have to wonder if that family member got a little bit confused, because I know that some of the family members are just following the gossip on Tube. So, someone, one of your subs had said, and I actually thought about it, and I thought, yeah, that's probably a viable thought, that that family member may have just been a little bit confused because the story was, he had said something like it might have been a Hispanic person or something along those lines, and then the media had released from one of the neighbours who was Hispanic that next lot of footage of Darren poking around in the alleyways. So he might have just been confused with that footage, like the in-between stages, before that footage actually came out. It was mentioned and then the footage came out, so it was like in between those two stages when he posted that on Facebook. So it could have been just some confusion.
Yeah, I mean, there could have been some confusion, certainly. But, the way, my opinion, for what it's worth, I read it objectively to what made sense to me, of course.
Right.
And what made sense to me was, and then with corroborating with Monica, that there was a second Hispanic individual that lived somewhere in that neighborhood that she doesn't know who he is, and he has turned his phone over. So, that's the reason why I believe that.
Well, he's hoping it's got some evidence on it.
Descriptive account.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And on that topic,
I think that for a lot of people that go ahead.
Yeah, well, on that topic, if it was someone who participated, let's just entertain the idea for a second. If someone participated and they were filming it, let's say, and they filmed Darren doing this to the child, well, that completely exonerates, Monica's family. But let's say we haven't seen any charges come up for a second individual. Let's say that second individual is underage and they didn't know.
Correct.
They actually had to stop that crime. They didn't know that filming the crime and handing it in wasn't enough.
That crime.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could have been threatened into performing that part of it.
Or just didn't know that was going to happen and just went, holy shit, I've got to film this now so I can dob the guy in. But anyway, like, because I see that happening here a lot. I see that happening here a lot in Australia. Like, the kids don't realise when there's a big bus stop outside the school grounds, and someone's getting their head pounded into the pavement, they all filming it, you know, and some are filming it because they think if they get it on film, they've got evidence, whereas others are just filming it because it's funny.
And they want to get social media clicks.
Right, they want to get their social media stuff happening. So, but they don't realise, they're young people. They don't understand that by being there and not, you know, calling the police or intervening or doing something proactive, that they are culpable. Right, they are actually culpable. So, you've got to get into the mind of, you know, a 17-year-old, say, or even if Darren's 18 and his mentality is a lot younger, then you can probably imagine that he's with a lot younger person, you know, in the 13 to 15 age bracket even. If, of course, this is all just, you know, speculation, just to entertain everybody's theories, but so what in that situation, what you would have is the cops certainly aren't going to tell you about an underage person coming forward or being involved or anything like that. That's completely off the record. That's sealed until, you know, it all goes to court or whatever, and they decide if they're going to try that young person as an adult or, you know, whatever. That's about when we would find out about that. So, you know, if that's the case, then we all just need to sit back and shut up and wait to see what happens. So, if it's
correct,
if it's not the case, then, you know, should just be shutting the fuck up anyway. But I thought we weren't going to swear, Aussie.
No, you know what? I'm trying very hard to divorce myself from that. You know, hoping that, you know, that extra effort to be clean-mouthed, you know, when referring to these tragedies, will, you know, hopefully carry on over. Well, you know, and you know, because I am, you know, I talk very intelligently until I get crossed or become passionate, and then I lose the ability to adequately express myself intelligently.
Absolutely, and I'm the same. Like, I can talk for hours on the tube, no worries, if I'm not upset or I'm just, you know, having a go at someone. But as soon as I'm upset, the F word will be every second word, or if I'm passionate, I'll drop the F bombs everywhere.
Yep, same with me.
I just wanted to move forward from that and talk about, you know, the reasons that she might distance herself from knowing him. You know, there's a whole bunch of reasons that she might want to do that. You know, her son went to school with him or whatever. There's reasons she might want to distance herself from him, but the very foremost reason I can think of is he just fucking killed a kid.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing that you have to keep into an account, you have to, you know, design in a buffer for is, this didn't come from the police. This came from the greasy media.
Right.
So the media can say whatever they want.
Right.
You know, you know,
the media's been terrible to her. Why did they even release the father and her records? What the fuck was that about? I don't even understand why the media went there.
It's to hook viewers. It's to substantiate that this is an ongoing thing and it's as ugly as it can be, and you need to stay tuned to our channel for all the updates.
That's horrible. It's a horrible thing.
It's the same thing that goes on YouTube. It's victim bashing.
It's victim bashing. Exactly. They should never have released her records. They should have been protecting her. They should have been, like, you know, we know that she was willing to talk to them. They didn't pay her. We know that. We know she didn't take any money for that. Sure. So she let them come into the house because she wanted them to be able to see what happened. She didn't want to shut down and be quiet and be blamed because she's not saying anything. She let them come into the
Correct.
house, and then they turn around and stabbed her fair in the back by throwing her records online. That was just terrible. That was
Correct.
the lowest of low. Like I just can't even fathom what.
How can you expect these ironic, sheep-herded YouTube platforms to do anything different than what the mainstream is doing? As soon as it's the YouTube is waiting for the seething thing, the salacious thing to come out about anyone else's tragedy.
Right.
And as soon as they see a thing that they can snag a hook in, oh boy, they snag it in and then they let it go back out. It's like choking someone almost to death and then letting them breathe again. And then choking them again and then letting them breathe.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
what it is.
It's terrible.
It's playing with your food before you eat it.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's playing with your prey before you kill it.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Totally.
And people say, oh, Benny's involved in the cover-up. Well, let me tell you what. Benny is not involved in the cover-up, because if Benny was exposed to anything that looked like a cover-up, he'd go straight to the police and would have zero problem doing it.
Right. And I know you would too. And
I'm protecting a fellow Dallas Texan. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm protecting the law in my state as well.
A victim of crime. She's a victim of crime. I don't give a shit what her record is. I don't care what she did in the past. She's a victim of a crime.
Guess what?
Yeah.
They're not offering Darren Brown's family any victim advocacy resources. I assure you of that.
Absolutely.
But they have offered the Pinkerton and the Sherrod family all the resources and then some.
Right.
For being the victim of such an egregious crime.
Right. And part of that should have been I sent you that page and I'll pop it on the screen for your viewers, but the law for Texas, let me just find it. The law for Texas is that the police do have to protect her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And let me tell you why there's even a penal code that addresses this situation, because what you're seeing, this victim bashing, it is just human nature. When you are a vicious, vile human, then you have this trait in your toolbox.
Right.
And the police have already pre-designed their law hundreds of years before your existence to try to curb. They knew you were coming 100 years ago when they made Texas law. They said, we're going to have people that are going to jump on this over here computer now, and they're just going to try to tear these people a new one. Let me tell you what now, down here in Texas, we're not going to stand for it, right? So it's
Absolutely
completely different here.
Right.
Although that they say Texas is full of ears and another expletive, let me tell you what, we're on the cutting edge. We are on the cutting edge of law and legislation here in Texas as far as gun control. Here in Texas right now, fun fact, and I'll just spend a moment talking about it.
Yep.
Here, fun fact, it is now sitting on Governor Abbott's desk to be signed, a bill which will allow every single Texan to carry a gun in any fashion he wants, whether it's slinged over his shoulder or tucked in his pocket or in the back of his pants or in his boot. Or hanging on a necklace on your, however you want to carry that joker, we're getting ready to be able to do it here. So it's a beautiful thing, and we also have, we have Gatesville, we got Huntsville here, we've got the death row, right?
Right.
And when you have a population of people that could fear that or respect that, however you so desire to interpret it. But that keeps a lot of things in order, so to speak, right? And you don't have these senseless crimes by these people that are already institutionalized, right? So to me, the advocacy for the death penalty is really a tenfold subject, because when you talk about who are the people that typically go to the row, those people are reoffenders. Now, you do have the phenomenon that, does something egregious that's aggravated and it's capital, and now, they're underneath of that scope, trying to meet that defense.
Yeah.
But when you're a habitual offender and you're looking at the needle, like, we don't have a problem giving it to you.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so powerful about Texas legislation, in opposed to any other place, we don't have a problem telling people that we kill criminals down here. Other places, they sneak around and do it, and they don't get the coverage. Like, here, we're proud of the fact that we put them in the dirt.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I don't know that I agree with you, but I certainly understand the sentiment. In this particular case,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This particular case, and also little Amari's case, it does make me sort of pause. I'm certainly not a proponent of the death penalty. I'm glad Australia doesn't have it. But then I see these cases that come up where I sort of think, well, I understand why America hasn't made that leap yet, because there's
right.
You certainly got a much bigger population to deal with, whether they do or don't want it. But
correct.
These cases certainly give me pause to consider, why it's still, a thing in America. But it hasn't made me a proponent of it. I'm still pretty much an opponent of the death penalty. I sort of think that a life being caged like a rat is like a death sentence, are like an easy way out, whereas being caged like a rat is not, if that makes sense, till you die. So
yeah, I mean, there is some families that go the other way. There's some families that are not a proponent of it, and they get more satisfaction from knowing that this person is in the depths with the sodomites. And then there's other families that want an exact revenge, a reciprocal exact revenge. Of course, we can't do an exact revenge. So and I don't want to speak for every Texan, but how I think a lot of Texans, including myself, think, is that if you can ever find a reason to put someone to death once, then you're a proponent.
Okay. I guess I'm a proponent then. So I'll just read this out now that I found it. While you were talking, I found it. It's a Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 56A.051, General Rights. A victim, guardian of a victim, which Monica is, or close relative of a deceased victim is entitled to the following rights within the criminal justice system. 1. The right to receive from a law enforcement agency adequate protection from harm and threats of harm arising from cooperation with prosecution efforts.
Boom. The retaliation law.
Right. So she is the one that identified Darren in the CCTV, and everyone's hanging her because she somehow knew him beforehand. But had she not known him beforehand, nobody'd know who the hell he is, and they wouldn't have caught him so quickly.
Correct.
So good on you, Monica. But she's now a witness for the state.
Good on you, Monica.
Right. She's now a witness for the state, so she's cooperating with the prosecution efforts. She's a witness for the state now. So, she's entitled to protection. She's entitled to protection not just from, the physical harm, but the protection that you're trying to sort of provide her, like the online protection. So,
correct. Reputational protection.
Right, and the police can't do anything about that, but, obviously we're doing our best to do something about it and trying to nip it in the bud, but, people are still going to do it. It's like here in Australia, like a lot of our TV here in Australia is American TV, right? And so we've got the housewives of Orange County and the housewives of, I can't even remember the names of them because I don't watch them. They're not things I watch. But we've got all of those, and that's what this YouTube stuff is starting to sort of become. It's this they all just it's in-house bickering and fighting and bashing each other and backstabbing, and it's the housewives of freaking YouTube. You know, I coined that
Yeah, it's
phrase,
exactly what it is.
and I coined that phrase in the West case. You know, the housewives of Kern County, because they're doing the same thing. It's like these people don't have anything better to do with their lives.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's difficult, you know. It's you know, I when I say I want redemption for that family,
Right.
you know, because I think that we also deduced that, you know, potentially the very object of his drive or motivation is a sexual drive,
Right.
of some sort.
Potentially.
So, it potentially correct. And for me, I'm very intrigued, and we talked about this as well. I'm very intrigued with Mr. Brown's pathology because he's like a natural. He's a purist, right? It doesn't matter to him if it's little boys or little girls. He doesn't have a preference in that way.
Yeah.
And to me, I have a hard time understanding that, you know, that methodology, that operandi. It's hard for me to understand because everything we do in life is based upon a preference, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And he you know, yeah, he has no preference. So he's just kind of I don't know if natural is the correct term, but he clearly has no bias in little boys or little girls. It's all the same to him. So
Yeah.
That to me makes him such a more dynamic creature.
Right. And he's definitely the type of predator that you've always found yourself hunting online anyway. So I don't see that as a racial
Absolutely.
thing because those predators pop up in all races.
No.
You know, they're not, you know, we just look at the Jeffrey Epstein case, you know, like we've got a Jeffrey Epstein type character popped up in France. We've got one that's popped up in Canada. We've got another one that's popped up. I can't even remember them all now. That I think there's 3 or 4 of them. They've popped up in all different countries. So, and they have no preference either. You know, like that one in, I think it was the one in France. Is it the one in France? Oh no, he's the one in America. I can't remember all their names either. This is a totally different subject, but he actually he fled to what's the little island? Oh my God, I've gone blank for some reason. He fled to a little island somewhere with a lot of coloured people, and he's using those girls in his little operation. So, you know, he doesn't have a preference for colour, race, or anything, you know, so long as it's doing the sexual abuse, he doesn't care. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if
so this is a common theme.
Correct. With a guy like Brown, see, I think Brown, he had a lot going on physiologically. Not in a sense that made him, he's not crazy. He just has, you know, clearly has this urge that he can't control. So, you know, for someone else that is successful in the sort of acts that Brown was attempting to do, the fact that they don't have a preference, it oftentimes makes it very hard to narrow down if they're serials or who they are, because serials tend to like, you know, we know that they tend to run, you know, solo, and they like one kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as you've got a guy that's killing men and women and sexually abusing them both, what you have is the Richard Ramirez scenario.
Yes.
The Richard Ramirez scenario was that he started mixing in little boys as far as the sexual molestation. So he became a very hard person to track until they started getting survivors, right? Once they had survivors, they knew what they were on to. But Richard Ramirez is that sort of unbiased reptile that is so very intriguing, to say the least.
Right. Very much. They are definitely, I don't know that you could call it intriguing, but they're definitely sickos. And Darren's a very young version of it, you know, like he hasn't developed his predatory sense in in the same respect that, you know, these other adults that we were just talking about. He hasn't developed that to any degree.
Correct.
And so getting him off the street now before he develops that any degree of that, you know, is not a bad thing. It's I hope they don't bail him out. Like, it would be tragic.
No, I think that we're past all that. What we saw, and I hate to cut you off, but if I don't say it now, I'll forget.
Yeah.
What we saw was the birth of the serial killer.
Absolutely.
He tried to go serial. He tried to go serial in the span of 3 hours.
Right.
So, good work. You know, I feel like my deductions personally, and I've spoken them with you. I feel like narcotics were a pull for him because he kind of knows the layout of the house, with relative certainty. And I think that he knew that there probably was, footage, cameras all around. I just believe that the draw was, chemically, I feel like he was operating under virtue of chemical enhancement. Let me put it that way.
Absolutely.
And I think
probably, and that's
I
probably
think that drove it.
Probably exacerbates those the things that he would be suppressing socially, that he knows are socially unacceptable. It would probably be exacerbating some of that. So the last thing I think I'd like to address too is just to close out is everyone's saying that Monica looked drugged up through the media interviews. Now, personally, I think if you've just been up all night crying your eyes out and you're stressed and you're grieving, how would you look any different?
Well, let me add to that and piggyback on it. There's been a number of comments saying that, my eyes are brown and circled like Monica's. And so I guess what I say to that is I don't use drugs and haven't used drugs in a number of years. So what you're looking at is someone that's stressed and not getting good rest.
Right.
So, I mean, debunked.
Mine are terrible. I get terrible bags under my eyes when I'm tired. Like, as I get older, they're getting darker. So I wear a lot of makeup. When I get online with you guys and I haven't slept all night, I use a lot of concealer. So...
and I, that was something kind of, it's popped up in the last few years or whatever. I didn't always have it, but now, so.
I also noticed too, Benny,
on drugs, like
when you're having those moments with your spinal issue, your brain and your spine issue, I notice your eyes are a bit darker when you have those moments. The bags under your eyes go a lot darker when you're having those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, and there, there's a lot of things that encompass that, that malformation that I have, and I think that the beautiful thing about YouTube, one of the beautiful things is there's a chronology of behavior from Benny, and I'm very interested to see what kind of life is ahead of me, because this brain surgery is supposed to help with an awful lot of different, emotional issues and, just different deficits, what looks like deficits. It's because my brain is pushing out the little back of the hole off the back of my head.
Yeah. And the impulsivity and stuff like that, because that's all controlled by that area of your brain right at the back there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have all the tall tale signs. I have an issue with my gait. There's balance issues and coordination issues that will be a challenge in relearning, because I've compensated for so many years not knowing what was going on. And so when they fix that, there will be a few things I'm going to have to not relearn necessarily, but readjust to.
Yeah. Well, we're here for you when the time comes. I understand it's a little while.
I know you are. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everyone that made the trip with us up to this point, and there will be a passing of the baton, I will be passing the torch to Aussie, and during that time, I don't know how long it will be, but during that time, I certainly don't need to be stressing myself with what's going on here. So I'm going to heed the advice of the doctor and the wife and the boss lady, Aussie.
Yeah, I don't know about the boss lady thing, but hey, I've been having fun booting people, so if anyone wants to get rude about it while you're off your feet, then I got me boots ready.
That's right.
All right, well, cool. So I'm going to stop this recording now, all right? And
all right.
And we can just wrap up off the record.